Okay guys, I'd like to thank you for making the time to come here today to talk about the advocacy wins in Western Australia that we've had recently. First one I think we talk about is the Workcover WA. John, now you've been involved in this process, submission, I mean, a lot of words that we can use, since 2013.
Yes.
Am I right?
Yes, that's right. So we identified, even probably earlier than that, that chiropractors were not eligible to be workplace rehabilitation consultants. Now that role involves a healthcare provider working closely with an injured worker and helping them get back to work. And chiropractors were not eligible for that. So we submitted some documents to Workcover in 2013, so a big submission. We then submitted a second submission in 2016, and just recently, thanks to all of you, that has been approved, and we now are eligible for that role. So that allows chiropractors an additional job opportunity, so they can actually work, not necessarily in private practice, they can actually work closely with injured workers in more of a private role. So that's a really big win for chiropractors, because as I said, it opens up another job option for graduates.
Now, when you started this in 2013, you were working with Lyndon, is that right?
Yes.
Now, Lyndon, what inspired you to begin advocacy in this area?
The reality is that chiropractors, when they graduate in Australia, have pretty much one career pathway, and that is private practice. Yep. There's a very small fraction of people who go into research or academia, but that's essentially it. And immediately I saw, when I spoke to John about this right back in the day, that we needed extra career pathways for our graduates. I mean, as you know, I'm involved in education at Murdoch University with chiropractic undergraduate students, and the ability to offer people a different career pathway when they graduate is not only important from the point of view of students, but also for the wider profession. And apart from that, it's a matter of social justice.
We want equity.
We want equity, mate, like the old Commonwealth Bank ad. And we looked at this, and we could immediately see that not only were we eminently qualified to fulfill these roles, or our graduates were, but the exclusion was on the basis of what we considered to be fairly flimsy criteria. Yep. So we set about right at the day addressing that. We didn't realise it was going to take 7 years, John. But I think what it illustrates is the importance of, sticking at it, not giving up, and actually talking in a coherent way to the stakeholders that make these decisions.
Sure. Now, I would be interested, Josh, you came in later on in the piece. Now, you spoke about the first submission, John, was in 2013, and then the next one is in 2016. Were there challenges that came about that, you think you'd be able to say to us why it took three years to do the second submission? And then, Josh, I'd like to hear from you as to what you thought would be the challenge and how it's actually, the outcomes come about.
I think naturally with these things, there's a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of, political, involvement. I think, a lot of the professions that were on that list were certainly, rightfully so. They were working in that role, and I really just think it took a lot of work for us to prove and to show that we had the skills as chiropractors to work in, the workplace rehab space, and specifically in that role. So, in terms of challenges, I think it takes time to develop networks. It takes time to develop relationships within organisations.
Stakeholders, yep.
Stakeholders, and thankfully you guys were able to kind of lob in more recently and get it over the line.
So my story is I got to watch these guys get really close to getting this to actually happen. Like we were basically, other than seeing it on paper, we thought we had already achieved this for WA, and that didn't end up happening. Workcover at the time was going to a more national sort of framework, That's no longer the case, and the framework's since sort of allowed more sort of discrepancy within the states and territories, which in this case has helped us. But in the end, the reason I got interested in it is because I was sick of seeing it on our agenda. It's been on our agenda since I've been on the board, which is a long time, and no one else was going to do it. So I thought, well, I'm going to do it. So we, with a lot of help from yourself, Shelley, sort of started getting in contact with these guys and finding out like exactly what it is that we were fighting for a start, and then obviously how we could go about trying to get it over the line. It's definitely about building relationships and being in contact with our stakeholders, which is the big plus that we have right now. I felt very burdened as a director of the CAA WA. It was just so much work to run a company when really as a chiropractor, the only interest I had was meeting with organisations like Workcover and seeing if we could work and collaborate with them more. So
to get such outcomes like this.
Yeah, so this is a really good example of why the new company has a lot of value for our profession.
Yeah, and the amalgamation, I would further that to say that the amalgamation has allowed a lot more grassroots stakeholder engagement to be achieved. And as you said, it's because the day-to-day running of a company is being taken away.
Yeah, and I think this is a really big tick. Like, this is a really big win because it does allow chiropractors a whole new career path. And I see this being quite exciting for Murdoch because collaborating with Workcover and the possibilities for research and other avenues where students can sort of go to outreach maybe, I don't know, but there's a lot of possibilities once you start talking with these organisations. So that's exciting too, and just in general, this is just one of many projects that we're probably going to see a result in the very near future.
Yes. I'll just, if you guys can just reflect on the experience, what it's taught you personally, this advocacy journey that you've had.
I think one of the main things that I've taken from this is that never give up, and the importance of having continuity in people being involved in projects and initiatives that the profession is undertaking. Literally, if there was quite a few times along the way, John, where it's like the phoenix from the ashes. First of all, we missed the train as it left the station by a matter of very short time back at the start, when the whole process was escalated from a state level to a national one. We engaged with personnel at Workcover at the time, and thankfully they're still there and still in senior roles. That was a big plus. We were able to utilise submissions that we'd made to things like the spinal pain model of care at the time, and show that in that space chiropractors had expertise, but also from an educational point of view, where we could show that the aspects of operating in this space was present in our undergraduate degrees. And working with the individuals at Workcover and within the profession, I might say, there's been various players along the way when it was escalated to the national level. I mean, I'm thinking of Chris Webster in Victoria, and there's a few other people who've been involved even from outside of the association in minor roles as well. But it illustrates the importance of being able to have credibility in a space and be listened to as competent health professionals and engage with people on a professional way. That's what I take from it. John,
I think, kind of linking it to Murdoch, chiropractors that study chiropractic in Western Australia are very well skilled in rehab and workers' rehabilitation. So I think the training that we have positions us very well to work in that role. And going on what Linda said, it's a legitimate career pathway for new chiropractors, for new graduates. So that's good for the university, it's good for the profession, and these things, they take time, and we managed to get there.
I think advocacy can be quite frustrating.
Yes.
So sometimes it's
Not a nagging.
It's a bit like a poker game. Even when you have a win, and we were at the meeting together and we had the win, and we all sat there inside our heads thinking, where's the champagne? But we were cool as ice. We were cool as ice.
I remember that meeting.
Yeah.
I do remember.
Yeah. And the same when you have a bad meeting, it's just being cool, calm, courteous and polite, and following up and moving to the next meeting and finding the next action step and progressing forward. And unless you're progressing forward over time, you're not going to make any progress. So I think it's all about starting as many projects as you possibly can and just following them forward until you get a result.
What I would say, that this is not the end. And to quote history, this is not even the end of the beginning. What we need now is for those people in the profession, and particularly in Western Australia, and I know I can think off the top of my head now a number of graduates and present students who would fit so smoothly into this space. But the key is now for them to equip themselves that when they apply for these positions that will be coming available, that they are ready, and that they present themselves as not only ambassadors for themselves but for the profession, because they will be the vanguard of this new opportunity. So it's really important that when they start operating in that space, is that they do themselves proud and their employers proud, and obviously the profession.
Yeah. And just provide that value that we know we can.
Yeah, that's right.
And that they don't go in with a sense of entitlement, that they actually realise this took a lot of work to get to, and that when they step into this role, they know that they're the pioneers in this space.
And I think that's the important part, of having you guys here to even just discuss this, because as you say, it's about taking things for granted sometimes. As you say, 7 years in the making this has been, and John, if it wasn't for people like yourselves, this wouldn't never have happened. I don't know who else would have just picked it up. So I would like to thank you all for all the work that you've done and been part of this. And I think, as you said, it's the beginning of something. And the next steps, we're already working on that. How we're going to get in front of client managers and all the rest of it. So there's a lot of arms to this, but I think that then brings us to our next advocacy win, which is with the Radiological Council. Now this too has been going since 2017, Josh. It was, I remember, Joanne as well, she would remember getting a letter from Miss Upton, the Secretary of the Council, asking about chiros and use of lasers for registered chiropractors. Now that was a submission that we put in back in 2017, which again, I think it was all in a week. We've got the good news of 2 wins, so Josh was very excited when I got him on the phone.
We're all excited.
Yes.
I don't know, it comes in threes. Yeah.
Yes, I wonder what number 3 is. Yes, so the RAD Safety Act, that was the laser uses by registered chiropractors. Now, that was to do with class 4 lasers. Josh, did you?
Yeah, prior to this, we were already able to fulfill certain criteria, and you were able to practice in these 3B lasers here in WA as a chiropractor. So that included like a safety training that you had to go through. And in the other states, chiropractors were eligible to also use class 4 lasers. And so there's some differences between the technology, but in the end, what we were after is for WA chiropractors to be able to use that next level. So we've sort of, Lyndon put the paper together.
He sure did, I was reminded. Thank you, Lyndon.
And that's been put in to try and represent our case there, and it's just bring us in line with what chiropractors are eligible to use, not only in Australia but internationally. And so it was a long time waiting for a response. We basically already had action plans for trying to collaborate with other professions to try and bring this up. Because I found out there's not a lot of chiropractors actually registered to use laser devices here in WA, so we're quite a minority. But I see it as quite an important sort of part of the market that chiropractors should be sort of participating in, and you know, it's a really big win for us to get that over the line as well.
Sure, with this one, the difference between the two is this was a removal of a restriction, whereas with Workcover it was actually being included. So, and if I'm right, it was also physio, you know, our advocacy work that was done by you all is also included the removal of the restriction for physiotherapists and osteos. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think in the
The
end...
thank you letters in the mail.
Yeah. So
I'll be checking that.
In the end, I think you might find like
Yeah.
there's a lot of issues like this within allied health where collaboration helps. So that was basically one of the other options we had going forward if we got a negative response from this first submission, was to basically work with the APA or another association to try and get us over the line. And I think that that's probably an option for quite a few areas of our sort of...
Shelley, this is just, I guess, or these are both examples of, again, the ACA and previously the CAA doing the heavy lifting in terms of advocacy for the whole profession. Now this benefits obviously not just our members, ACA members, in this case other professions. So it's an example where you need an economy of scale. You need to have access to government and to private insurers and Workcover and all these sorts of organisations, because the credibility of the message is based on the credibility of the messenger. So those relationships and those abilities that CAA and now ACA has provided over the years, many people just don't realise, and especially non-members. So I'd actually encourage anybody that's not a member, this is a great opportunity of what have the Romans ever done for us? Well, this is what ACA has done for you, even if you're not a member.
Sure, and that seems to be the case with many things, even this year. If we look at it, there's the Safer Care, Victoria, this COVID. I mean, ACA's always seemed to be doing the heavy lifting, as you say, member or non-member. Everyone ends up being, you know, better off. You know, and I would like to thank you guys. I mean, you guys don't get paid to do this work, being on that, you know, state boards and even now as the Western Australian Regional Committee.
No, it's a love job.
It is.
Yeah.
It is very much so
and
to love.
some days we love it a little bit more. We love it more today.
We get paid from the satisfaction of these wins.
Yeah. Yes.
That's our...
and it gave us a bit of a boost, so they've just made us stronger by giving us a win.
Sure, and I suppose the message here, guys, is persistence and also what WA leading the way. Yeah?
People ask me what I mean when I talk about the big C.
Okay.
To be a big C chiropractor, this is what I'm talking about. The vision of what chiropractors can be and do, and how we can contribute to society by the strength of us professionally and as the profession as a whole.
It's really the value of the profession that the public doesn't understand, and just educating that on. It's like the most obvious thing from every meeting that, Shelley, you're there with me when I go into these meetings. It's the basic lack of understanding. It's chiropractors pigeonholed as one-trick ponies, and there's just complete misunderstanding of exactly what it is that we're trained to do. And it's the awe and amazement when they actually find out what it is that we are trained to do. So I think what most people don't understand when they go into these meetings is that we have the solutions. We're not the people providing the problems. We have all the solutions for them. We're just trying to tell them about it.
Yeah, and I suppose one thing that I've learned from it is the communication side of things is that, yes, as a chiropractor, you know what you can do and where you benefit, but it's actually the relaying that education to who's in front of you at the time, whether it is someone that is, you know, from private health insurance or wherever it is that they might not have ever seen a chiropractor. Yes, they get to make decisions based on that. So it's about education as well. That is, you know, something that I would say personally in this this journey with you all it's the education part and not expecting people just to know because you don't know.
And just as importantly, Shelley, what we can't do and what we don't do and what we don't claim to do. Just as important.
Well, thank you all. I think that's a wrap. What do you reckon?
I think we'll bring the champagne out now.
Yeah.